Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel.
So he just told you the audience. He didn't say the whole world. He said, hear the words speaking to you, O house of Israel.
Right.
Verse 2, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen.
This ain't me saying it, this ain't Pastor Pork Chop saying, nobody else saying this. The Lord said, learn not the way of the heathen. Now he said, we're the house of Israel. Outside of that is the heathen. It's the other nations.
Gather yourselves together, a nation of desire. Gather yourselves together and lift your heads up high. Gather yourselves together, nation of desire. Gather yourselves together, 'cause you're not alone. We've gone a week, yeah, in captivity. Captivity is tough, y'all. Looking forward to see Matthew 12 and 50. Gather yourselves together, a nation of desire. Gather yourselves together and lift your heads up high. Gather yourselves together, nation of desire. Gather yourselves together, 'cause you're not alone. How can we not enjoy ourselves? And uplifting one another. Gather yourselves together, a nation of desire. Gather yourselves together and lift your heads up high. Gather yourselves together, nation of desire. Gather yourselves together, 'cause you're not alone. Oh, gather yourselves as that day draws
Separate
nigh.
money in the world.
And uplift one another.
For one cut up a tree out of the
It's a
forest.
shift.
One cut up a tree out of the forest. The work of the hands of the workmen with an axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good.
Right, so he's talking about a tree here. He's talking about a tree giving them personal like certain characteristics because they used to worship trees. These were idols. So then when we put this tree around, what are we representing? We represent the same as that tree. So we gotta, now we know, all right, we shouldn't be idolizing trees. Well, we're just doing it for the kids, but what are you teaching them?
Right.
All right. Shalom, Most High in Christ. Bless to everybody that's tuning in. I am your brother, Jacob Ben Israel, and I got reading for me our brother,
Roy
just Roy.
Ben Israel.
Yes, Roy Ben Israel. And then we got Uzziah Ben Israel on OBS, formerly known as Brother Jamil. So today we're getting into the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. In the recent weeks, we've gone over the 10 plagues. We did introduction to Moses, and then we did the 10 plagues, and now it's time for the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And we do this during our weekly classes so that when Passover comes, we keep the Passover, and then Feast of Unleavened Bread come, we keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we do it a little different from how others do it. They come together at one time and do all of this at one time. Whereas we're going to enjoy the Passover and think on those things, which tonight we're going over the ordinances for Passover, and we're going to do the ordinances for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And Lord's will, you'll understand why it is we do each one of these and how to perform each one of these. And since we're getting a late start, we're just going to jump right into it. Last week we ended at Exodus, the end of Exodus chapter 10. So we're going to pick up today in Exodus chapter 11 and verse 1. So we had gone through the 9 plagues, and there's one plague left.
The book of Exodus, chapter 11 and verse 1. And the Lord said unto Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether.
So all these other plagues that the Lord put on the Pharaoh and the Egyptians, he told Moses, go and tell them I said this, and I'm going to harden their heart when I hit them with the plague, and they're not going to let you go. Now comes the time he's going to let you go. Because when we did the introduction to Moses, we showed you that this whole thing was him judging Pharaoh and the Egyptians because they killed his firstborn. They killed his son. So it was already, the writing was already on the wall. He was going to kill the firstborn of Egypt. Verse 2.
Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold.
So we read that the Lord had been told Moses that this was going to happen, and he was going to give the children of Israel favor, and that they was going to borrow of the Egyptians. Go ahead.
And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people.
So Moses was looked up to by everybody. Go ahead.
And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go into the midst of Egypt.
Hold on. So got to make a point here. Moses said that about midnight the Lord is going to come. That means this particular day right here, this night, that the Lord was going to come through about midnight. Go ahead.
And all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more.
Right, so it was not only was the firstborn of every servant, every man that was in Egypt, even of the Egyptian servants, all of them. Every firstborn male was going to die, and not just of people, also of the animals. Go ahead.
But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man or beast, that ye may know how the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And all these thy servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, and all the people that follow thee, and after that I will go out.
So this is Moses telling Pharaoh that. He telling Pharaoh, your servants going to come and they going to bow down to me and say, get thee out. Go ahead.
And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh. And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land.
Right. So the 10th plague is coming. Now the Lord is going to give Moses the ordinances for the Passover. Exodus 12 and 1.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
Right, so this is the month of Abib. This is the first month of the year unto the children of Israel. And on the 10th day of this month, at this time, you're supposed to draw you out a lamb on the 10th day. So he's giving Moses the ordinances of how we're supposed to keep the Passover. Go ahead.
And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls.
Mm-hmm.
Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats.
Right. Now, we know today, that this represents Christ. And also, it's supposed to represent us too. A lamb for an house. A lamb without blemish. We're, as men, we're supposed to run our households in this way. We're supposed to be that lamb. Go ahead.
And ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
Right. So as the 14th day is coming in, you're supposed to kill the Passover. Now, so this is, I guess, the third year that we've been teaching it this way, trying to show our people this is how we're supposed to do it. When it says you shall kill it in the evening, when it said kill it, that is specific to you killing that lamb for the Passover. And the ordinances that go with this right here, this is specific. It says kill. So give me Leviticus 23 first. So what we're going to do is going to go and show you specifically in different places kill. You're supposed to kill the Passover and how specific that is. Leviticus 23 and I think 5. I think it's 5.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month, at even is the Lord's Passover.
Right.
And on the 15th day, okay.
So on the 14th day is the Lord's Passover. The 14th day is the day you're supposed to kill the lamb and keep the ordinances of Passover. You can drop this. We'll come back to it later. Numbers 28. And verse 16.
The book of Numbers, chapter 27 and verse 16.
28.
28 and verse 16. And in the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of the Lamb.
Of the Lord.
Of the Lord.
All right, you can drop this. Now Joshua 5. Joshua 5 and verse 10.
The book of Joshua, chapter 5 and verse 10. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month, at even in the plains of Jericho.
Right. Now, Ezra. Regular Ezra, chapter 6 and verse 19. So, you're supposed to kill the Passover and eat it, and the ordinances that go with that on the 14th. And the 15th is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. 6 and start at verse 19.
The book of Ezra, chapter 6 and verse 19. And the children of the captivity kept the Passover upon the 14th day of the first month.
So we were coming back from Babylon, from the captivity of Babylon. And we came back and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. Keep going.
For the priests and the Levites were purified together. All of them were pure, and killed the Passover for all the children of the captivity, and for their brethren, the priests, and for themselves.
Right, so because of the uncleanness of our people coming out of captivity, the priests were sanctified, and then they did the killing of the Passover. Whenever you see killing of the Passover, it's specific for the 14th day where you kill the lamb. Every man is supposed to do it for his own house, but because here they were not clean, so the priest did it for them. That is the 14th day. You have to roast it with fire, and you have to do it with bitter herbs and unleavened bread. Did you read 21?
No.
Yeah, read 21.
And the children of Israel, which were come again out of captivity, and all such as had separated themselves unto them from the filthiness of the heathen of the land, to seek the Lord God of Israel, did eat.
Right, so those that was separating themselves from the heathen, they ate of the Passover. All right, you can drop this. Let's go to 2 Chronicles. But no, we're in. Let's do First Esdras 1. Then we'll come back to Chronicles. We got a couple more in Esdras. Actually, First Esdras 1. Yeah, this is about Josiah, so we're gonna read about Josiah in the book of Chronicles too. But we're trying to make a point, show you about killing the Passover. Give me verse 1.
The book of First Esdras, chapter 1 and verse 1. And Josiah held the feast of the Passover in Jerusalem unto his Lord, and offered the Passover the 14th day of the first month.
Right.
My wife said your mic messing up, Jay. It's static.
My answer there.
Why use this one?
No.
It says
I hope that's
no.
better. Yeah, I just turned it off and on. We'll see if it do better. See if it's better now. So read that again, Roy.
The book of First Esdras, chapter 1 and verse 1. And Josiah held the feast of the Passover in Jerusalem unto his Lord, and offered the Passover the 14th day of the first month.
Right. So Passover is always on the 14th day. I've looked through the Bible. You're only going to see the Passover being the 14th day. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is always going to be the 15th day. Chapter 7 and verse 10.
The book of First Esdras, chapter 7 and verse 10. And the children of Israel that were of the captivity held the Passover the 14th day of the first month.
Mm-hmm.
After that, the priests and Levites were sanctified.
Right. So after the priests and Levites were cleansed. But again, the Passover, the 14th day of the first month. Read verse 12.
Verse 12. And so they offered the Passover for all them of the captivity, and for their brethren, the priests, and for themselves.
All right. Now to Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 30.
It's 15.
And verse 5. We're going to jump a little bit.
The book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 30 and verse 5. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto the Lord God of Israel at Jerusalem. For they had not done it for it of a long time in such sort as it was written.
Right. So this is Hezekiah inviting the northern kingdom, the remnant of the northern kingdom that was still in the land, told them to come up and keep the Passover like they're supposed to, because they hadn't done it for many years. Now, so he sent out letters to them. They laughed him to scorn, but then some, you could tell, thought about it, and they decided to come and keep the Passover. So they came in the second month. Jump down to verse 13.
Verse 13. And there assembled at Jerusalem much people to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the second month, a very great congregation.
So later on, we're going to go to Deuteronomy 16 and show you. You're supposed to come to Jerusalem, to the temple, to keep the feast of unleavened bread. That's in Deuteronomy 16. That's a commandment. The Passover you can keep in your own house, but the feast of unleavened bread, you had to go to the temple. We don't have a temple anymore, so we just come together and keep the feast. Verse 15.
Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the second month.
See?
And the priests and the Levites were ashamed, and sanctified themselves, and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of the Lord.
Now jump to verse 18.
Verse 18. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Lord pardon every one.
Right. So again, the children of Israel were unclean. So the priests and the Levites did the killing of the Passovers for them, and they did eat. Well, read verse 17 for them.
Verse 17.
So,
for there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Therefore the Levites had the charge of the killing of the Passovers for every one that was not clean, to sanctify them unto the Lord.
right. So know and understand, when it comes to the Passover, you're supposed to kill the Passover. For whatever reason, this terminology is used. Killing of the Passover. So whenever you see the killing of the Passover, it's always 14th day. Now there's some confusion, but we'll hit that later on in Deuteronomy 16. Some people call the whole event the Passover. And it causes a lot of confusion because we as a people don't understand the ordinances and everything that's supposed to go along with it. You have separate ordinances for the Passover, the passing over of the death angel, and then you have ordinances of the great feast. All right, you can drop this, go to 2 Chronicles 35. So we're showing you, the scriptures Isaiah said, to the law and to the testimony. So we're showing you in the law, we show you in the prophets, and then at some point we're going to show you Christ and the disciples. 2 Chronicles 35, verse 1.
The book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 35 and verse 1.
But notice, these are different events, but they're all saying and doing it the same way. Verse 1.
Moreover, Josiah kept a Passover unto the Lord in Jerusalem, and they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month.
So it's the same thing we saw in Esdras. Yeah, we saw it in Esdras, first Esdras 1. It's talking about Josiah and the Passover. And that they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. Now, so the same thing, it's given the same account. The children of Israel were unclean, so the priests and the Levites did it for them. Verse 6.
Verse 6. So kill the Passover, and sanctify yourselves, and prepare your brethren, that they may do according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses.
Right now, verse 11.
Verse 11. And they killed the Passover, and the priests sprinkled the blood from their hands, and the Levites filleted them.
And jump down to verse 13, because we haven't read the ordinances yet, but we're going back to them right after this. Read verse 13.
Verse 13. And they roasted the Passover with fire according to the ordinance. But the other holy offerings sawed they in pots, and in cauldrons, and in pans, and divided them speedily among all the people.
Right, so you're supposed to give these offerings daily. You're supposed to be sacrificing 2 lambs, a bullock, a ram, all these things you're supposed to be doing every day. So they took those off of the fire and put them in pots because the Passover lamb has to be roasted with fire on the 14th day. Now, drop this. Let's go back to Exodus 12. Start back at 6.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 6. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
Now, notice when we started off in Exodus 12 and 1, it said the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron. So this is the Lord speaking to Moses and Aaron here. He's giving them the ordinances. Now, verse 7.
And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it.
Right. In the houses where they shall eat it. Go ahead.
And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it.
So they're supposed to roast the lamb with fire and unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Now, what I'm using this year, I'm using dandelion. I used dandelion last year. What y'all gonna use?
I got dandelion.
Dandelion.
I thought you said mint.
I said mint and dandelion.
Okay. Yeah, so, and I've used mint too. We've used different things. You can look it up. There's plenty of different bitter herbs that you can use for the feast. Maybe we'll throw something up on the website. I mean, not website, but on the school page tomorrow, later on, or tomorrow, a list of things that you can use for bitter herbs. Verse 9.
Verse 9. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the pertinence thereof.
You know, let's. I want to do something real quick. Read verse 7.
Verse 7. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts, and on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it.
On the houses wherein they shall eat it. Matthew 26. Now, you know what? Just remember this, because we're gonna visit this again. When we go to the New Testament, we're gonna come back and visit this. We're striking the blood on the upper posts of the houses wherein ye shall eat it. Because you're keeping Passover in the house and the death angel is coming by. And if you have the blood of the lamb on your doorpost, then that death angel is not going to come in there and kill the firstborn. This is in a house. This is important. Now, verse 9 again.
Verse 9. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the pertinence thereof.
Right, so you're supposed to roast the whole lamb, the whole thing. Go ahead.
And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire.
Now, so it's the same thing when you keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The sacrifices that they made, you had to eat it all that night, and none should remain in the morning. We'll get to that later when we get to the ordinances on unleavened bread. Go ahead.
And thus shall ye eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover.
Right, you shall eat it in haste. Go ahead.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night.
Right, hold on. I will pass through the land of Egypt this night. So he's giving the ordinances to Moses. It hasn't, that 14th day hadn't even come in yet. Go ahead.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
I am the Lord. Go ahead.
And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt.
Right. So if the blood is on where it's supposed to be, on your doorpost and above the mantle, then the plague is going to pass you by. Go ahead.
And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
Right. So this is the Passover. It's the death passing over the houses of the children of Israel. Now, verse 15 goes into unleavened bread. We're going to continue in the Passover right now. Let's go to verse 20.
The book
Hold
of
on.
Exodus, chapter 20.
No.
Chapter 12.
12 and verse 21. My bad.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 21. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, Draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover.
See that? So the Lord gave the ordinances to Moses and Aaron, and now Moses and Aaron are giving the ordinances to the elders of Israel. Why? Because everything has to trickle down in an order. And you're dealing with, so it says 600,000 men, and then you got their wives and their children. You're looking at a good 1.5 million people. So it has to, the word has to be spread to everybody.
22.
And notice it said, take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. Remember, everything we read, you kill the Passover on the 14th day. Go ahead.
And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning.
Right, so you have to be in the house until the morning, until the sun come up. That's another ordinance. Go ahead.
For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you.
Right, he won't allow the angel to come in, the destroyer, to come in and smite you.
I just like to add, and like you would think about if you put yourself in that mindset, you can be scared.
Of course.
It's not like, oh yes, like nah, you're not gonna be in no celebration.
Right, you're not going to be in a celebration mood. So you have watched the 9 plagues, which some of them hit Israel a little bit too. But then the second half of them plagues was just on the Egyptians. And the children of Israel abode safely. And now the Lord is saying a death angel going to come through and be killing people. And you got to be in your house all night. So you think they're going to disobey the Lord? No. Neil whispered, hell no. That's right. Hell no. All the plagues he put upon Egypt, don't you think that their people wish that they was Israel? Shoot. Go ahead.
What we read last week in the class, his servants were like, Pharaoh, like, we gonna keep dealing with this?
Yeah, you're not gonna let them go, aren't we? Can't you see Egypt is destroyed already?
Right.
Where we at? 24. Yeah.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 24. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when ye be come to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he hath promised, that ye shall keep this service.
Right. When you get into the land, you're gonna continue to do this. When you get into whatever tribe and land you're supposed to be in, you're gonna continue to do this service. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, What mean ye by this service?
Right. So when your son and your daughter come in, like, why are you putting blood on the doorpost? Why are you picking out a lamb without blemish? Why are you doing all this, Daddy? Father. Go ahead.
That ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshiped.
Right. So that's what you're going to, this is what he told them to spread throughout the children of Israel. And it said, and the people bowed their head and worship. So they're in agreement, and they going out and telling everybody what's about to go down. Verse 28.
And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they.
So he told them, pick you out, go and draw you out a lamb and kill the Passover. And I guarantee you, they were told, get you unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And then you go in after you get your lamb ready and roast it with fire, and you get your behind in the house, and you don't come out until the morning. And the scripture said they did. They went away and did as Moses and Aaron said. Verse 29.
And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on the throne until the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle.
So what's missing? So Moses gave them the ordinances for the Passover, and they went and did as he instructed them to do. And the death angel came, and he smote the firstborn of man and beast in Egypt. But what most of us haven't realized is there were no ordinances given for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Nothing is said to the people about having the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The ordinances was given to Moses and Aaron, but they did not give them to the children of Israel, because that's for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's not for the night of Passover. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead.
Right, so they rose up in the night, everybody realizing that their firstborn is dead. Now there's a great cry in the land of Egypt. And I'm sure the animals, they might not have been as vocal about it. I don't know how they mourned, but I'm sure they were hit. Had to be. Go ahead.
And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up, and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go. Serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herd as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also.
So this did not happen that night. Now you in the next day. Because children of Israel ain't supposed to do nothing until the sun come up. And now you got to gather together, like I said, 1.5 million people. And you got to get your belongings. And you got to get your animals. And you got to spoil the Egyptians. You got to go and borrow from your neighbors. And I don't think people understand how long it takes to do all of this. This is, what, 3,000 years ago? You're moving on camel time. You know, and then the word has to go forth to everybody. But, you know, we got brothers and sisters that believe that all of this happened. We left that same night. No, death angel is out there. And then we got to go as it is written. We were not even given the ordinances for the Feast of Unleavened Bread yet. But we're going to get to that. Keep reading.
And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, We be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their soldiers.
So, you know, I was thinking about this when y'all was teaching today. I was listening to y'all, and I thought about this, about the leaven. But somebody said something about Africa. And I was thinking, I was like, you know what? So the Lord set that thing up so that we didn't take the leaven out of us with Africa, meaning the sin. Because remember, when we get to the law, after the goings, Leviticus 18, after the goings of the people of Egypt shall ye not do. That's their leaven, the leaven of Egypt. It's the same this time. Lord's will we make it. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver, and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, beside children.
So now, the next night, we're leaving out, and we're on our journey to Ramses. And still, we have not been given the ordinances for unleavened bread. It hasn't been given yet. Because we're looking at two complete different days. Keep going.
And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt.
See, so they're out of Egypt now, and they're baking unleavened cakes.
For it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual.
Right. I mean, it's plain as day.
Yeah.
It's plain as day, but there's nothing wrong, you know, because this is like we teach people, especially on the street.
Patience.
Like Hosea pulled it, talking about James 4:17. If you know and understand something, then you're held accountable. You're in sin irregardless, but the Lord is not counting it if you don't understand it. It's when you do understand something and then you go against it. That's the problem. Matter of fact, let's jump to something. Let's go to Numbers 9. Because you do have people that say, "Oh, we don't have to keep the feast nowadays," and you know all this other stuff. Watch this. Numbers 9 and start at verse 10.
The book of Numbers, chapter 9 and verse 10. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. So
he's given a couple of examples of situations where you might not be able to keep the Passover in the first month. So we're given, like you saw when dealing with Hezekiah, when he called the children of Israel that didn't get carried away captive to come and keep the Passover in the second month. So you're given another chance to keep it, right? Go ahead.
The 14th day of the second month at even they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs.
See, that's specific ordinances for the passing over. Go ahead.
They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it.
Right, watch this.
But the man that is clean, and is not in a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover.
Forbeareth, meaning he don't want to. For whatever reason, he don't want to. He don't give a damn. But he know he's supposed to keep it. But he forbearing. Go ahead.
Even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord in his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin.
Right, so people that refuse, they know and refuse to do it, they're going to bear this sin. They're going to bear their iniquity. Keep the feast. Repent. Keep the feast. Now back to Exodus 12. So we're almost done with the Passover itself. For now, we're going to touch it again in the New Testament.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years.
Now, if you pay close attention, you see Moses kind of skipping back and forth. This is not like done in chronological order. The whole thing is not done in chronological order. Keep going.
And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations.
So this is the night we left out. It's talking about now. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, This is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof.
Now, so he gave them the ordinances before on how to keep it. Now he's giving them the ordinances of who can eat of it. I'm going to make this plain and simple because it can be confusing because it keeps using the word stranger. Who ate it in the houses? That's simple. So when you keeping it, the other nations can't keep it at all. I think that's refrigerator. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron. All right, you have 43. This is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. But
all right, you skip down to verse 47. So if other Israelites want to keep the Passover with you, you just have to make sure that they're circumcised in their flesh. The other nations cannot keep it with you. Go ahead.
Verse 47. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it.
Right.
And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass at the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies.
Right, so the Lord brought us out of Egypt by their armies. Give me Numbers 33 and 3 real quick, and then we'll come right back here to chapter 13.
The book of Numbers, chapter 33 and verse 3. And they departed from Rameses, in the first month on the 15th day of the first month. On the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians.
Right. We spoiled the Egyptians, all that stuff, gathered ourselves together, and then we left on the morrow after the Passover. So we left that next night. And who wrote this? Moses, same one that wrote Exodus 12. He's not contradicting himself. Now, Exodus 13 and 1.
The book of Exodus, chapter 13 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn. Whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine.
Right. Because remember, so he saved our men and beasts alive. So now we belong to him. And he put to death the firstborn of man and beast in Egypt. Go ahead.
And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten.
So now, he brought us out on the 15th. Now you see him talking about unleavened bread. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. Back to Exodus 12 and verse 15.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 15. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses.
That's on the 15th. So when the 15th come in, there can be no leaven in your house. Go ahead. Notice that's not an ordinance for the passing over. Go ahead.
For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel.
Go ahead.
And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation. And in the seventh day there shall be an holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them,
Sabbath.
save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you.
So the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a Sabbath, and the last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a Sabbath. Go ahead.
And ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. For in this selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever.
So the Feast of Unleavened Bread is the great feast. You got two of them. You got the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then you got the Feast of Tabernacles. So Feast of Unleavened Bread is 7 days. It's preceded by Passover. That whole event is 8 days. The Feast of Tabernacles is a 7-day feast, and then you got a holy convocation on the 8th day. That total thing is 8 days. Where you at? 18?
Yeah.
Oh, so go ahead,
I
read,
just read
read
17.
it. Yeah, 18.
And ye, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even.
Right, hold on. So, you've done the 14th day. Now you're at the end of it. That's when this feast kicks in. The 14th at even when the day is going out. Because you got an even coming in and an even going out. Go ahead.
And ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at even.
So 7 days you're supposed to eat unleavened bread. Now, I've seen where brothers be like, well, on the Passover that night, you eat unleavened bread. Well, in any of your offerings to the Lord, you have to eat unleavened bread. You cannot eat leavened bread. Hold on. I always have a hard time finding this one.
Verse 4, chapter 2.
Chapter 2 and verse 11.
You see 4?
You can read it.
No, I'm saying, you see 4 though. It's saying the same thing. But
Yeah, go ahead and read it. Go ahead and read both of them.
the book of Leviticus, chapter 2 and verse 4. And if thou bring an oblation of meat offering, baking in the oven, it shall be unleavened cakes of fine flour mingled with oil, or unleavened wafers anointed with oil.
Now jump to 11.
Verse 11. No meat offering which ye shall bring unto the Lord shall be made with leaven, for ye shall burn no leaven, nor any honey, and any offering of the Lord made by fire.
So on all your offerings, it has to be unleavened bread except for one. Read the next verse.
For the oblation of first fruits, ye shall offer them unto the Lord, but they shall not be burnt on the altar for a sweet savor. And every oblation of thy meat offering shalt thou season with salt. Neither shalt thou suffer the salt of the covenant of thy God to be lacking from thy meat offering.
So in first fruits is the only offering that we make that is made with leaven. Leviticus 23 real quick. Since I made that point, I gotta show it. That's the only offering that's made with leaven. Everything else has to be unleavened. So don't get tricked up because you eat unleavened bread on the night of Passover. That does not initiate the feast of unleavened bread. In fact, well, I'll show you in a second.
Book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 15.
17.
Oh, okay. I was just going to show
Remember we had
I
the
was-
conversation
Yeah, I was just
about-
going to show it that it was what the feast was.
Oh, okay.
And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord.
That's Pentecost. Pente meaning 50.
Ye shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 tenths deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven.
You do these with leaven. It's the only thing you do that has leaven in it. And that's us coming. These are the first fruits coming out of sin and repenting.
They are the first fruits unto the Lord.
Right. Now back to Exodus. 13. Oh no, we was at 12.
Yeah.
19 was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 19. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land.
Right. So the 15th day, which is when we're keeping the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the 15th day of the month of Abib will be Monday night. So by the time Monday night comes, you have to have all the leaven out of your house. So, and as you're searching your house looking for leaven, search your spirit looking for leaven too. That's what it's really about. Go ahead.
Ye shall eat nothing leavened in all your all your habitations. Shall ye eat unleavened bread? Then Moses called for all the
So you
elders.
good? No, you good. So that's the ordinances for the Feast of Unleavened Bread as the Lord gave them to Moses. Now in chapter 13, he's given the ordinances to the children of Israel. Start at 3 again.
The book of Exodus, chapter 13 and verse 3. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from his place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came ye out in the month of Abib.
Go ahead.
And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters.
All right, verse 8.
And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, this is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt.
Right, so this is about coming out of Egypt. The other one was Exodus 12 and verse 27. And it reads, that ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed their head and worshiped. So two completely different things, and they run concurrently, one after the other. Now, let's go back. Let's revisit the scriptures we went to earlier. Leviticus 23 and 6. Matter of fact, read 5 again.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
So you notice we have the ordinances for the Passover. You eat it. You don't go in. You don't come out your house. You roast your lamb. You got your bitter herbs, and you got your unleavened bread. That's the night of the Passover. You kill the Passover. So it says the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. Then, now verse 6.
And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord.
Right. So on the 15th day of the same month, showing you there are 2 different days, of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. So see how they have their own ordinances. Go ahead, verse 7.
In the first day you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days.
See, hold on. So you're making an offering to the Lord 7 days. Like Tony Braxton said, 7 whole days. All right, drop this. Numbers 28. So it's 2 different days, and they got their own ordinances. Well, 2 different feasts, and they have their own ordinances. Start at verse 16. Numbers 28 and 16.
The book of Numbers, chapter 28 and verse 16. And in the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of the Lord.
Right, so that's the day you kill the Passover and you have your unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and you don't come out the house, and it's in your house. Go ahead.
And in the 15th day of this month is the feast.
See, the 15th day of the month is the feast, the 7-day feast. Go ahead.
7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. In the first day shall be an holy convocation.
Sabbath.
Ye shall do no manner of servile work therein.
Notice that the Passover on the 14th day is not a Sabbath.
Yeah, they never say it's a holy convocation, servile work. They never bring those attributes up.
Yeah, how can it be a holy convocation if you're in the house with your family? Go ahead.
But ye shall offer a sacrifice made by fire for a burnt offering unto the Lord.
So the same thing was saying in Leviticus 23. Sacrifice. 7 days you doing sacrifices. Go ahead.
2 young bullocks and 1 ram, and 7 lambs of the first year. They shall be unto you without blemish.
Jump down to 22.
Verse 22. And 1 goat for a sin offering to make an atonement for you. You shall offer these beside the burnt offering in the morning, which is for a continual burnt offering.
So remember we read in Chronicles, there were other offerings that they made, but they had to take them off and put the Passover lamb on there because they had to be roasted with fire. The other stuff could be sod in pots. Jump down to 25. You just touched
Verse 25. And on the 7th day you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work.
Right. So the first day of the feast is a holy convocation. It's a Sabbath, and the last day. Now, let's go back to 2 Chronicles 30. So the places we had just gone to, we're going back and showing you the separation. Basically, we're showing you why we do things the way that we do. And it's not strange or crazy. It's as it's written.
Or we're teaching people not to do it.
Right. We damn sure ain't teaching people not to do it. Give me verse 15 again. And then we're going to jump.
The book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 30 and verse 15. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the 2nd month.
Mm-hmm.
And the priests and the Levites were ashamed, and sanctified themselves, and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of the Lord.
All right, now jump back to 18. Read 18 again.
Verse 18. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, and had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Lord, pardon every one.
Right, so they ate the Passover. Now, verse 21.
And the children of Israel that were present at Jerusalem kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with great gladness.
See that? So Mill was alluding to it earlier. You're in your house on Passover and you're afraid, hoping and praying that the death angel don't come and, do his business in your house. But on the other hand, because the Lord freed us out of the bondage of the Egyptians and brought us out of Egypt at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we're supposed to be happy and celebrating. So it said they kept the Feast of Unleavened Bread 7 days with great gladness. Passover first, then Feast of Unleavened Bread, 7 days. Finish that out.
And the Levites and the priests praised the Lord day by day, singing with loud instruments unto the Lord.
All right, now chapter 35. Read verse 1 again. No, go straight to 11.
The book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 35 and verse 11. And they killed the Passover, and the priests sprinkled the blood from their hands, and the Levites filleted them. And they removed the burnt offerings, that they might give according to the divisions of the families of the people, to offer unto the Lord as it is written in the book of Moses. and so did they with the oxen.
Mm-hmm. Verse 13.
And they roasted the Passover with fire according to the ordinance.
And so the ordinance is the 14th day. You get your lamb, bitter herbs, your unleavened bread, and you roast that lamb with fire. See how important the ordinances are? Go ahead.
But the other holy offerings sawed they in pots, and in cauldrons, and in pans, and divided them speedily among all the people.
So they kept the Passover. They kept the Passover. Now, verse 17.
Verse 17. And the children of Israel that were present kept the Passover at that time, and the feast of unleavened bread 7 days.
See.
Clearly a separation.
Yeah, clearly.
Passover and
Over and over. Ezra, was it Ezra 1 or Ezra 6? Ezra 6. So we're hitting the law and the prophets, and then we're going to go to Christ too.
The second is
No, Ezra 6 and probably I say 21 and 22.
19.
You can start everyone. Yeah.
The book of Ezra, chapter 6 and verse 19. And the children of the captivity kept the Passover upon the 14th day of the first month. For the priests and the Levites were purified together. All of them were pure, and killed the Passover for all the children of the captivity, and for their brethren, the priests, and for themselves. And the children of Israel, which were come again out of captivity, and all such as had separated themselves unto them from the filthiness of the heathen of the land, to seek the Lord God of Israel, did eat.
Right, did eat. Go ahead.
And kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with joy. For the Lord had made them joyful, and turned the heart of the king of Assyria unto them, to strengthen their hands in the work of the house of God, the God of Israel.
Right, the God of Israel. So I mean, as you look at it, even if you believe that it's combined into one day, you're just gonna have too many problems. Because you keep saying the 14th day, and then in these examples where they're keeping it, you keep saying they kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days. It's just continual. And they cannot go off from as Moses wrote it. First Ezra 1. We're just going over the same accounts to show you it does not change anywhere. First Ezra 1. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones because of what it calls it. Verse 19.
The book of First Ezra, chapter 1 and verse 19. So the children of Israel, which were present, held the Passover at that time, and the feast of unleavened bread 7 days.
Sweet bread.
Of sweet bread.
The feast of sweet bread 7 days. You know why this is important? Because this is another way of showing a difference. Exodus 12 real quick. It's another one of them verses people don't pay much attention to. Verse 39. Just read the first part.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 39. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt.
See, it says baked unleavened cakes. So everybody I know of, when they do Passover, they do different kinds of unleavened bread. It's just unleavened bread. But notice it says cakes here in verse 39. And then in First Ezra it says sweet bread. It's still unleavened. Chapter 7, First Ezra 7. Give me verse 12. No, give me 10, 12, and 14.
The book of First Ezra, chapter 7 and verse 10. And the children of Israel that were of the captivity held the Passover, the 14th day of the first month, after that the priests and the Levites were sanctified.
All right, 12.
Verse 12. And so they offered the Passover for all them of the captivity, and for their brethren the priests, and for themselves.
Right now, 14.
Verse 14. And they kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days, making merry before the Lord.
You can drop that. It's 2 different days. You know, I've seen a brother just went to, I asked a question, and a brother went to this one New Testament scripture, but you can't leave out this whole mountain of evidence and go to a scripture that, in all actuality, you don't truly understand it. You know what I mean? And I said nothing back. I just was like, okay, thanks. Because I'm not trying to, come against our people or try to make them look stupid or nothing like that. Like, just like, okay, you don't understand. Now, let's deal with these New Testament scriptures. So now, knowing what we have just read, you got the Passover with its ordinances, and you got the Feast of Unleavened Bread with its ordinances. Before we go to New Testament, man, we got to hit, because you brought it up, Deuteronomy 16. So Deuteronomy 16 will confuse you. Gotta hit this. It ain't long, though. It ain't long at all. So, start at verse 1.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16 and verse 1. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night.
Right. So this is the confusing chapter. You know why? Because Passover, or Feast of Unleavened Bread, is being called Passover in this chapter. Unleavened bread is always associated with us coming out of Egypt. So it took me a while to figure this out. I kept looking at this, and then it just started dawning on me. All the ordinances you see right here are for unleavened bread. They're not for Passover at all. Go ahead, verse 2.
Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto the Lord thy God, of the flock and the herd.
Of the flock and the herd. That's not a lamb. With the Passover, you can take a lamb or a goat. This is talking about the flock and the herd. That's the ordinances you see in Numbers chapter 28. Go ahead.
In the place which the Lord shall choose to place his name there.
See, so this is in the place where the Lord should choose his name. This is talking about the temple. This ain't talking about your house. The Passover is at your house. This is talking about the temple. You're supposed to keep it in the temple. Go ahead.
Thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction, for thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt in haste, that thou mayest remember the day when thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of thy life. And there shall be no leavened bread seen with thee in all thy coasts 7 days. Neither shall there anything of the flesh which thou sacrifice the first day at even remain all night until the morning.
So the sacrifices that you make, they have to be eaten that night, right? But these are all ordinances of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, not the night of Passover.
Verse 5.
Yeah.
Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
But
at the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to place his name in, there thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at even, at the going down of the sun, at the season that thou camest forth out of Egypt.
Right. So what place did the Lord choose to put his name there? 2 Chronicles 6:6 said, I have chosen Jerusalem. He put his name in Jerusalem. He had the temple built by Solomon in Jerusalem. So you're supposed to keep what is being called the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, is supposed to be kept in Jerusalem. See, it said thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates. But the ordinances say that when you keep the Passover, you do it in your gates. This is talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread and at the temple. What verse are you going to pull?
I'm saying verse 16.
Oh, read verse 7.
And thou shalt roast and eat it in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, And thou shalt turn in the morning and go out unto thy tents.
Right. So you're supposed to keep it at the temple and be in a holy convocation all night, and in the morning go in your tents. Whereas the Passover, you're supposed to be in the house all night. This is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, but it's being called Passover. Yeah, now verse 16.
3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose.
In the place which he shall choose.
In the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
That's it. The Feast of Unleavened Bread. Go ahead.
And in the Feast of Weeks.
That's that's Pentecost.
And in the Feast of Tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
Right. Those are the 3 times a year you're supposed to come up. And that's even in Exodus. That's in the covenant. That's in Exodus 23. But this, in Deuteronomy 16, is calling Passover. It's calling the Feast of Unleavened Bread Passover. That causes confusion when we get to the New Testament. Now, let's go to the New Testament. But the whole purpose of going over all of this stuff and showing you kill the Passover. That's specific for the night of Passover and unleavened bread and roasting your lamb without blemish on fire. Mark 14. Yeah, Mark 14. Now we're almost done too, y'all. Mark 14 and 1.
The book of St. Mark, chapter 14 and verse 1. After 2 days was the feast of the Passover and of unleavened bread.
See, the feast of Passover and the feast of unleavened bread, one against another. Go ahead.
And the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might take him by craft and put him to death.
Right.
But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar of the people.
Right. Not on the feast day, meaning on the 15th day, which is the Sabbath and that high day. Everybody's supposed to be at Jerusalem. Now verse 12.
Verse 12. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, Where wilt thou go? Where wilt that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover?
See, so here's the confusion. The first part of the verse. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover. So they're calling the whole thing the unleavened bread. But in particular, the day that you kill the Passover, which is everywhere we read it, it is the 14th. So his disciples said unto him, Where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? But like in Deuteronomy, it said you can only eat the Passover where the Lord shall choose. So let's see what Christ and the disciples do. Verse 13.
And he sent forth 2 of his disciples and said unto them, Go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. Mm-hmm. And wheresoever he shall go in, say ye to the goodman of the house, The master saith, Where is the guest chamber where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples?
So now I got to ask the question, is Christ in the midst of sin? If the whole thing is actually the Passover, a feast of 7 days, why is Christ and the disciples keeping it in this man's house and not at the temple? It's a problem. Because Christ ain't wrong. He's the embodiment of the law. He's got the greatest understanding of the law. So who got it right? Is it us? Thinking it's 2 days combined together? Or is Christ right? And as it is written right. The first day of unleavened bread when they killed the Passover. That's the 14th day. That's the passing over of the death angel. And it's a memorial for us forever. We're supposed to remember it and keep that in its ordinances forever. Now, verse 15.
And he will show you a large upper room furnished and prepared. There make ready for us.
Right. Now, Matthew. Matthew 26, same account. Just going to hit it in each account. You can start at 1.
The book of St. Matthew, chapter 26 and verse 1. And it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said unto his disciples, Ye know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified.
So it's saying the same thing. The feast of the Passover. Mark said Passover and unleavened bread. Then he says Passover where you kill the day which you kill the Passover. So it's, if you don't know the ordinance, man, you'll get confused. See, they contradict each other. Verse 4 and 5.
Verse 4. And consulted that they might take Jesus by subtlety and kill him. But they said, Not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar among the people.
Right, same situation. So they had to take him on Passover. They couldn't take him on Feast of Unleavened Bread, because that will cause dissension and uproar amongst the people, because they're there to have a good time and keep the feast. Now, verse 17.
Verse 17. Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover?
See, now in Matthew is being called the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, but it's still, they're preparing for the Passover. Go ahead.
And he said, Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples.
Right. But you can't keep it in somebody's house. You can't keep it within your gates. That's the Feast of Unleavened Bread that's talking about. 19.
And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the even was come, he sat down with the 12.
See? Oh, no, verse 21. You read 21 too.
And as they did eat, he said, Verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me.
So he sat down with his disciples in a hired house of some man, some brother, and they did eat the Passover together. They did not do it at the temple. What's done at the temple is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Luke 22. We're hitting them all. We're hitting all 4 of them. Luke 22 and 1.
The book of St. Luke, chapter 22 and verse 1. Now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh, which is called the Passover.
See? So if you read this and you don't understand Deuteronomy 16, see, it's called the Passover. See, that's the end all be all right there. But that's not the case. You must know the ordinances. Verse 7.
Then came the day of unleavened bread, when the Passover must be killed.
The 14th. The day that's separate from the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, verse 11.
And ye shall say unto the goodman of the house, The master saith unto thee, Where is the guest chamber where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples?
Go ahead.
And he shall show you a large upper room furnished. There make ready.
Mm-hmm.
And they went and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover.
Go ahead.
And when the hour was come, he sat down, and the 12 apostles with him. And he said unto them, With desire I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer.
Right. So every time you see Christ say it, he calls it Passover. Every time. There's no confusion with Christ. Now John 13. This one right here will throw you for a loop. I did have a brother call me and was like, yeah, I can see a little something right here. So I have to explain this verse. Verse 1.
The book of St. John, chapter 13 and verse 1. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end.
Right, so here it says before the feast of the Passover. This is talking about before the feast of unleavened bread. This says, read verse 2.
And the supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him.
So they have eaten, they've just ate the Passover, and now supper is ended. Now the spirit of Satan is entering into Judas, and Judas is going to betray him. So 24 hours from this point is going to be the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and Christ already going to be in the tomb. So what is it? Who right and who wrong?
Now before the feast of the Passover,
That's the big feast.
in verse 2, and supper being ended, two
Yep.
separate days.
Yep, 2 separate days. So from chapter 13 all the way to chapter 19 is all the events that happened that night, with him going out, praying for them, washing their feet, doing all of this stuff in there last night. And he's taken in the middle of the night. By the morning, they got him at the high priest's mansion. And when the sun come up, he getting judged. So it said before the feast of the Passover. So what feast is that? It's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. John, let me see if this, I think there's something in 18 I like to use. Oh no, I don't usually use it for this. There's a lot of stuff in here. But we use it for different reasons. Chapter 19 and verse, give me 13 and 14.
The book of St. John, chapter 19 and verse 13. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth and sat down in the judgment seat in the place that is called Pavement, but in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. And he said unto the Jews, behold your king.
Right, so Christ is on, they at the judgment seat, but it's the preparation of the Passover. It's talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Right.
It's the preparation of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now 31.
And even if it's new to you or you got to digest it and study it, it's worth looking into at least. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much evidence that you have to at least go in and research it.
But sometimes I had different things that like make me start looking at this stuff, and it start making sense. And one of the things was something that a Christian was trapping up one of the brothers with. And I couldn't answer it myself. But then when I started seeing this, I'm like, yo, this makes sense. This make all the sense in the world. Now they can't trap you up. Because you'll have a hard time counting them days. And they'll jump on you, boy.
But this right here, how you in the judgment seat after that supper.
Right.
But you're preparing for a feast day.
Right.
You gotta consider that.
Verse 31.
The book of St. John, chapter 19 and verse 31.
I'll read 30 with it too.
30. When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost.
So Christ died. Now 31.
The Jews therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away.
Right. So that preparation day was they were preparing for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The high day, meaning one of them 3 days that you have to come to Jerusalem. Pentecost, Tabernacles, and Feast of Unleavened Bread. 40.
The book of St. John, chapter 19 and verse 40. Then took they the body of Jesus and wound it and wound it in linen clothes with the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, wherein was never man yet laid. There laid they Jesus therefore, because the Jews preparation day, for the sepulchre was nigh at hand.
Right. It was the Jews' preparation day. So it was the day before the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Man, I got to tie up this one loose end. Let's go to Mark, because some people say that this preparation day was for the weekly Sabbath. So I can't leave this loose end down here. Mark 15. talking about this preparation day. Mark 15 and verse 42.
The book of St. Mark, chapter 15 and verse 42. And now when the even was come, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath.
The day before the Sabbath. So it's not the weekly Sabbath. It's the high holy day, the Sabbath of the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's a holy convocation. Thou shalt do no servile work therein. Now, Acts 12. Verse 1.
The book of Acts, chapter 12 and verse 1. Now about the time Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church. And he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread.
See, then were the days of unleavened bread. So after Christ is gone, still keeping Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, I was thinking we was going to read 4, but we don't need to read 4. Acts chapter 20, verse 6. We're almost done, y'all. Yeah, just verse 6.
The book of Acts, chapter 20 and verse 6. And we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and came unto them to Troas in 5 days.
Again, still observing the feast. Verse 16.
Verse 16. For Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus, because he would not spend the time in Asia. For he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost.
Right. So fine, we did a class on this. So finally, after many years, he had the courage, and he had the spirit on him to go up. He knowing they was going to kill him, or try to kill him if he went. And he went up to Jerusalem for the feast. 1 Corinthians 5. I know, that's why it's got to be changed out, bro. I be seeing y'all be looking shook. I don't even hear it because I'm used to it. All right, this is what we got to do. 1 Corinthians 5, start at verse 6.
The book of
This
1 Corinthians.
this happens every year. The Lord does it himself.
The book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 5 and verse 6. Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump?
Right, remember, because I made a comment. We left out of Egypt without the leaven of the Egyptians.
Purge.
So-
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
Purge out therefore the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us.
Right, so through Christ we can remove the leaven. And we have to. If we don't purge the leaven, then the Lord is going to purge us out from amongst his people. It's like, because in some of the laws we read, if you break it, you're going to be separated from his people, like it said. Go ahead.
Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
Right. We got to be like Christ. We got to be conformed to Christ. Like we was talking to the brother at camp today. When you look into all these ordinances of animal sacrifice and stuff, it's supposed to show you the offering of Christ, him offering himself for us. That's supposed to be us. It's supposed to be our body and our blood.
And Christ was dead here, right? Well, Christ already had been crucified at this point, right?
Yeah.
And risen.
Yeah.
And Paul, our beloved brother Paul, is still telling us to keep the feast.
Chapter 11 and verse 1.
The book of 1
1 and
Corinthians, chapter 11 and verse 1.
We're going to close with this.
Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ.
Right.
Now I praise you, brethren, that ye remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I deliver them to you.
Right. So, even though people try to use Paul to try to cancel out Christ and the commandments, Paul ain't doing that. He's exhorting us on keeping them, like, sincerely. Because, like we read in, we did the class and we read in Acts chapter 20, how they fell on his neck and everybody's in tears because Paul knew that they weren't going to see him again. But he said, he continually was exhorting them on how to keep the commandments and to repent, and that he was free of all men's blood because he's done as he's supposed to do. Paul had nothing but love for his people. This man got stoned a couple times.
Got up and kept going back to work.
Right? He got up and said, through much tribulation we shall enter into the kingdom of God. But everybody try to use him for their own purposes.
As a sin, a scapegoat.
Right. Instead of Christ being the scapegoat, they got Paul being the scapegoat. But anyway, hopefully, y'all, you got the understanding of the Passover, the memorial and feast of the Passover, and the 7-day feast of unleavened bread, which sometimes is called the Passover. So tomorrow night at even, we're doing the Passover in our houses. Well, we roasting the lamb outside.
Right.
But we're going to keep the Passover in our houses. And then, Lord's will, Monday night, we coming together and we keeping the feast.
Of unleavened bread.
Yeah, the feast of unleavened bread. And 7 days. No leaven. 1 year, man, my first year, I wasn't even thinking. I got hungry. I had worked all day, and I saw a Pizza Hut. And I went over there, and I was about to order a pizza, and a brother called me. And I started talking to him. I'm like, yeah, I'm at Pizza Hut. And then they're like, hold up.
All praise.
Right? I'm like, hold up.
Even with those them temptations, the Lord make an escape route for you.
Right. I got him. Like, bro, call him up right now.
My wife saved me like that before, bro. I was at work and I ain't had nothing to eat. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to go to this taco spot right here. She was like, what you doing? No, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, snap.
Hey, it'd be like
that.
you'd be like me. One scripture. You'd be like me. Like a month ago, I was just so busy working, and then I looked up, and I seen the little fingernail of the moon. I said, "Damn!" And I was like, "Oh snap!"
First day of the month.
Yeah, it was like here I am working. Dang, what? Let me go to Acts. It's either gonna be chapter 2 or chapter 3. I get the 4.
Ignorance. What you did?
17.
3 and 17.
Yeah, 3 and 17.
The book of Acts, chapter 3 and verse 17. And now, brethren, I wot that through ignorance ye did it, as did also your rulers.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things we'll do through ignorance. The problem is if you do it on purpose. Yeah, if you willingly doing something, that's different. The Lord looking at you like, I did not go up on that cross and take all that punishment for you to just do something just because you can. Like Paul said, put Christ to an open shame. How you think he gonna look at you? All what he went through. Yeah, Feast of Unleavened Bread. You gotta eat unleavened bread.
Gotta remove the leaven and eat unleavened bread 7 days.
Yep, 7 days. Other than that, you know, it ain't nothing in particular that you gotta eat. You just gotta make sure it's approved by the dietary laws. Can't be an abomination. But anyway, that's gonna do it, y'all. We ain't gonna be on here forever. Already ran over time. I'm your brother Jacob.
And Brother Roy Ben Israel.
And Brother Uzziah. With that, y'all, we say shalom.
Give diligence to make your calling and election sure.